Elizabeth Cochrane Seaman, better known by her pen name, Nellie Bly, was an American journalist. Bly is widely known for her record-breaking trip around the world in 72 days, in emulation of Jules Verne's fictional character Phileas Fogg. Nellie Bly also did an exposé in which she worked undercover to report on a mental institution from within called 10 Days in a Madhouse. I have never written a word that did not come from my heart. I never shall. Could I pass a week in the insane ward? At Blackwell's Island? I said I could and I would. And I did. I always had a desire to know asylum life more thoroughly, a desire to be convinced that the most helpless of God's creatures, the insane, were cared for kindly and properly. What is this place? I asked of the man, who had his fingers sunk into the flesh of my arm. Blackwell's Island, an insane place, where you'll never get out of. The insane asylum on Blackwell's Island is a human rat trap. It is easy to get in, but once there it is impossible to get out. How can a doctor judge a woman's sanity by merely bidding her good morning and refusing to hear her pleas for release? Even the sick ones know it is useless to say anything, for the answer will be that it is their imagination. I shuddered to think how completely the insane were in the power of their keepers, and how one could weep and plead for release, and all of no avail, if the keepers were so minded. I have watched patients stand and gaze longingly toward the city they in all likelihood will never enter again. It means liberty and life, it seems so near, and yet heaven is not further from hell. People in the world can never imagine the length of days to those in asylums. They seemed never-ending, and we welcomed any event that might give us something to think about as well as talk of. I asked for unbuttered bread and was given it. I cannot tell you of anything which is the same dirty, black color. It was hard, and in places nothing more than dried dough. I found a spider in my slice, so I did not eat it. I tried the oatmeal and molasses, but it was wretched, and so I endeavored, but without much show of success, to choke down the tea. In our short walks we passed the kitchen where food was prepared for the nurses and doctors. There we got glimpses of melons and grapes and all kinds of fruits, beautiful white bread and nice meats, and the hungry feeling would be increased tenfold. It is only after one is in trouble that one realizes how little sympathy and kindness there are in the world. Insanity, a perfectly rational adjustment to an insane world. A pretty young Hebrew woman spoke so little English I could not get her story except as told by the nurses. They said her name is Sarah Fishbaum, and that her husband put her in the asylum because she had a fondness for other men than himself. As I passed a low pavilion, where a crowd of helpless lunatics were confined, I read a motto on the wall, "While I live I hope." The absurdity of it struck me forcibly. I would have liked to put above the gates that open to the asylum, "He who enters here leaveth hope behind." From the moment I entered the insane ward on the island, I made no attempt to keep up the assumed role of insanity. I talked and acted just as I do in ordinary life. Yet strange to say, the more sanely I talked and acted, the crazier I was thought to be by all except one physician, whose kindness and gentle ways I shall not soon forget. Here was a woman taken without her own consent from the free world to an asylum and there given no chance to prove her sanity. Confined most probably for life behind asylum bars, without even being told in her language the why and wherefore. Compare this with a criminal, who is given every chance to prove his innocence. Who would not rather be a murderer and take the chance for life than be declared insane, without hope of escape? I would like the expert physicians who are condemning me for my action, which has proven their ability, to take a perfectly sane and healthy woman, shut her up and make her sit from 6 in the morning until 8 in the evening on straight back benches, do not allow her to talk or move during these hours, give her no reading and let her know nothing of the world or its doings, give her bad food and harsh treatment, and see how long it will take to make her insane. 2 months would make her a mental and physical wreck. The attendants seemed to find amusement and pleasure in exciting the violent patients to do their worst. After this, I began to have a smaller regard for the ability of doctors than I ever had before, and a greater one for myself. I felt sure now that no doctor could tell whether people were insane or not, so long as the case was not violent. I had looked forward so eagerly to leaving the horrible place, yet when my release came and I knew that God's sunlight was to be free for me again, there was a certain pain in leaving. There is a thin line that separates laughter and pain, comedy and tragedy, humor and hurt. I need a vacation, why not take a trip around the world? It is impossible for you to do it, was the terrible verdict. In the first place, you are a woman and would need a protector, and if it even were possible for you to travel alone, you would need to carry so much baggage that it would detain you in making rapid changes. Besides, you speak nothing but English, so there is no use talking about it. No one but a man can do this. A free American girl can accommodate herself to circumstances without the aid of a man. I always liked fog, it lends such a soft, beautifying light to things that otherwise in the broad glare of day would be rude and commonplace. If one is traveling simply for the sake of traveling and not for the purpose of impressing one's fellow passengers, the problem of baggage becomes a very simple one. If I loved and married, I would say to my mate, "Come, I know where Eden is," and like Edwin Arnold, desert the land of my birth for Japan, the land of love, beauty, poetry, cleanliness. Nonsense. If you want to do it, you can do it. The question is, do you want to do it? Energy rightly applied and directed will accomplish anything. While I live, I hope.